no confusion. He said, she said, clearing up the drama with Wanda.
IntellectualRadio.com. Feed your brain.
Feed me now.
I'm starving.
Hey, it is me, Wanda B, and you are She Said on IntellectualRadio.com. Here on our show, we like to bring the male and female perspective. The he's and helping relationships. We're trying to work on men and women communicating better, and that's the sole goal purpose of this show. And I have with me today my very own life coach, James Bourget.
What's up? What's up?
Come on up to that microphone.
What's up, family? What's up, family? I'm back. And I'm a little ornery today, so let's go. Let's get to it.
He's ready to start some stuff. So
Yes.
no, he usually helps. But just
But today I'm ready to start some stuff.
Okay, y'all put some topics that y'all want to talk about. Let's help me
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
rev him up today. So again,
I'm sharing the
he said, she
broadcast.
said, thank you. And everybody else share the broadcast. It's 2:14. That's my absolute favorite time of the day. I love 2:14. So that's the time. So, and my birthday, 2/14. So you guys
I see.
So you guys, our topic today is I have all these screens up and everything is updating. So actually nothing is on any screen I have here. So this will be funny. I didn't bring a pen or a paper. So let's see if my dear memory brings up what we're talking about today is, do men love more deeply than women? Is it even possible for men to love more deeply than women? This comes from a post that was in our group. He said, she said. So besides having this beautiful show on the best radio station on the planet, IntellectualRadio.com, we have this Facebook group that mirrors this beautiful show. And we talk about topics that and help the communication between men and women. And a conversation came up, a meme, a girl or her post. I think maybe it was her some tweets, maybe, or her post on Instagram, but she made some of these same statements. And I'm going to ask you, do you have them up by any chance where you can read some of these statements a girl made on her page?
So it's a lot. First one was, why do men love more deeply than women? She says, men understand that love takes time. Men do not base their love off of the way a woman makes them feel. Men do not allow. So let me correct some of the grammar as I'm reading. Men don't allow romance to dictate their decision making on a spouse.
Read it one more time for people like me who have to really let it sink in and understand the words.
She said, why do men love more deeply than women? Men understand that love takes time. Men do not base their love off of the way a woman makes them feel. Men do not allow romance to dictate their decision making on a spouse.
They realize that love takes time.
Love takes time.
Women don't realize that love takes time.
Woo.
What's the
I'm trying to separate personal from professional, preacher from practical, all of that. I got too many hats on. I'm trying to separate them. Okay, so
who's gonna show up?
I don't know. You might get all four of them.
Bring them all out.
So why do men love more deeply than women?
I don't know if I even believe that from the beginning. Well, one thing I think I started off as, well, I think you mentioned, do people even know love?
Yeah, do they even know what that means?
What does that mean? But why do men love more deeply? I don't know what loving someone deep means. How do you love someone deeply versus loving them? I don't know if I agree with that. So what do you think?
I think the vast majority of society does not even understand what love is. What love means. In Western culture, and if Tucson was here, he would say in this capitalistic culture, we tend to mistake romance for love. And the majority of the people who do that happen to be women. They mistake romance for love. So I agree with her one statement that men don't allow romance to dictate their decision on a spouse, but that's a little bit twisted because men are usually the ones expecting to give the romance. However, if I go to the professional side of this, I don't believe that men love more deeply than women. I believe grown-ups love more deeply than children.
That would make sense. So, but what if someone isn't mature then? So, and if a grown up is not mature in love,
Then they don't love deeply at all, or love at all. So, and grown up to me is not indicated by age. To me it's indicated by intelligence and experience, especially emotional and spiritual intelligence. The vast majority of us as adults do not love. We are infatuated, and we're lusting, and we're looking for romance. And there is a humongous difference. A humongous difference. And I'm going to pull up the definition of romance if you don't mind.
I don't mind. So, when the way she puts it, that men understand that love takes time, and that men do not allow romance to dictate, then so that's saying that if a guy romances her, takes her out to what women consider to be romancing. I'm going to say this from a woman's
Mhm.
perspective. I don't know quite what men consider to be romancing a woman to look like. So, and maybe you guys can help me. Guys, if you wanted to romance a woman, what would that even look like to you? But for a woman, if he's doing all the things she likes, and
Mhm.
monetarily, and he's
Or
nice,
emotionally.
and emotionally, then to her that would come off as if he cares.
That would equate to love.
That equates love, or
That
does
would,
it
in
go
her
that
mind.
deep? In her mind, is that deep? He's not just being nice. He really he loves me. He does this. He
Mhm.
does that. He buys me this. He takes me here.
You know, yes, that people equate that to meaning love. And that is not love. That is romance. And the feeling you get attached to that is infatuation. When the party stops, that's where love begins. When the romance stops and the infatuation stops, that's where love begins.
When the romance
Stops. That's when love actually begins.
For some women, I would think when the romance starts, that's when we're in trouble.
That's when they leave. When the romance stops, that's when they leave.
That's when we actually
That's when
are
there's
having
trouble.
problems.
Exactly. Love is not romance. And
Yeah, but love is not romance. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off.
when the romance ends, that's when the decision, that's when the display of love begins. That's when the display of love begins, when romance ends.
But I don't know if I agree. Me and this my electronic devices in me today. I don't know if
Don't worry, I got John says, is there a measurement for loving deeply?
I agree, John. I'm confused as to what exactly is deep love. What is that
I
for a
don't think
man?
there's a depth to love. I think you either operate in the spirit of love or you don't. I don't know that I agree that there's a depth to it or height to it. You either operate in that energy, in that spirit, or you don't.
So men do not base their love on what is happening with my is it
She said men don't base their love off of the way a woman makes them feel. That is true.
explain.
Women don't base whether or not they love a woman based upon how she makes them feel. Men rarely base anything off of how you make us feel. You get what I mean? Men rarely base things off of how you make us feel. We base it. We're more calculative. We calculate or analyze the pros and cons. If you remember, there was a post in the group that said, "Why aren't men getting married? why don't men get married, why don't men find marriage as beneficial? It was something like that.
Right.
And the vast majority of the men said the cost benefit to it. It just when you weigh the cost versus the benefit, there is no benefit. That's how men think. So it's very rarely off the way we feel. So if a woman is trying to get to a man's heart and she's doing so by trying to make him feel a certain way, it's a non-starter for him.
So men do not base their love off of the way a woman makes them feel. They base their love off what? A calculation? What are they basing their love off of if it's not how it makes them feel?
Men base their love off of things like, is she good for me? Is she a good person? Who is she? Can I see myself with her in the future? Does she fit where I'm going? Things like that. Does she respect me? Things like that men base love off of. But it is certainly not going to be, she made me feel good about myself. The vast majority of grown men, not and I'm not talking about boys and children, come to the table with a certain feeling about themselves.
Interesting.
John says romance is a part of love, an intricate part. It is a part that is developed as a result of familiarity and acceptance. And then Chris says men are more concerned about what they will get out of the deal. It's a business transaction.
I had someone call in last week. Our show was on that marriage topic, and someone, our very last caller, said love was a business. It was so
marriage is more the business. Love isn't. Let's define. Love is a spirit. Love is an energy that you operate in. The decisions you make aren't love. The decisions you make is based on whether or not you already are the spirit of love. Love is a he or a she. Love is an entity. So either you operate in the spirit of love, and therefore the decisions you make show that you operate in that spirit, or you don't. And the decisions you make show that you do not operate in the spirit of love. I tell a lot of the people I coach that God, especially in the Christian community, that when God gives you a challenge to deal with, he's really trying to show you where you are in your love walk, where you are. He's not necessarily trying to hurt you or challenge you, but he's showing you where you are in your ability to love, in your ability to be patient and still be kind, and your ability to be long suffering. Oh, that word is so taboo. And he said, she said in the group, long suffering.
I don't want to be long suffering.
A lot of women hate that word.
Who want to suffer for a long time?
They hate
long suffering. Don't sound good to nobody.
To nobody. They hate that word.
Long?
But you know what? It is quite literally, biblically, the first characteristic of love. Do you have the ability to be patient?
Patience is long suffering.
Absolutely. They're synonymous.
No wonder I don't have patience then, because I'm not very good at suffering for a long time.
And so check this out. So when romance, when a person's ability to do romance or to romance someone sort of wanes, so does the liking.
Say that again.
So if when a person's ability to be romantic or to provide romance in a relationship sort of dwindles, so does the quote unquote love, by the way we define it today. So if the man is unable for whatever reason to provide romance, typically the relationship begins to dwindle. I'll give you a prime example. The post I read in the group today, where the young lady says she really don't love the man, but she now ready to get married to the man, and she wanted to move back in with the man and this and that and the other, but he ain't doing the things that she expected him to do. He said, I read into that and I thought the man seems depressed, which significantly hinders your ability to be romantic when you're depressed. And she ready to walk away. She ready to move. She ready to go. I'm out. He don't love me.
I didn't read it, but could somewhere in there where he's not communicating what's going on with himself? I mean, if women don't know where you're going, what you're thinking, or what's happening with you, then a lot of times, then it is. Oh, how can she help him if he's depressed if she doesn't know that?
We about to. I told you I'm ornery today. This is where being in tune with who you're with becomes key. It's paying attention to who you're with. If you're in a relationship transactionally, when his spirit changes, you won't recognize what it is. If you're in a relationship spiritually, when his energy changes, you will immediately understand when his energy changes. But because a lot of us interact in a relationship transactionally, when energy changes, so does the way I interact with you.
When energy changes,
I interact with you differently. I'll give you an example. Me and my daughter were talking, and we were having a conversation. I don't remember the context of the conversation, but she said, if you love a person and they do something that gets on your nerve, what do? I said, we sort of discuss it, we talk about it. And she said, but if you don't love the person and they do something to get on your nerve, or the person comes to the conversation and they got a little attitude, I said, we disengaging from the conversation. We'll talk later. Call me when you feel better. But if I love you and you have an attitude, I'm concerned. I need to know are you okay? What's going on? And I can sense when your energy changes, whether you can be 1,000 miles away from me and your energy changes and we talk, I can sense that. If I don't really care and your energy changes and you call me and you got an attitude, I'm going to disengage in the conversation. Call me when you feel better. Not we got an issue. You got an issue. And that's how most of us interact in relationships. When a mate has an issue, it's your issue. Fix that, or fix that, and then we talk. Then we get back together.
I think most people handle it. Not most. Let me change that. I do think in some relationships it's handled that way. If they have an issue, they don't want to talk about it. You say, okay, what's going on? If they don't share it, then how do you help someone who
Remember,
doesn't share it?
men's primary way of handling stress is not to talk. A woman's primary way of handling or processing through information is to have a conversation. A man's primary way of processing through distress is not to have a conversation. So when you ask a man who is in distress, who is struggling with something, to let's have a conversation about it, you're literally asking him to do the antithesis of who he is. It would be the equivalent of a man seeing you as his woman in distress and walking away and leaving you alone. That is not necessarily a good idea, depending upon who she is.
So loving deeply, or the romance. So now it sounds like I'm bringing this back to the what it says. Do men love more deeply? Then, if that's the case, how is that a description of men
I'm so
loving
glad
more?
Valencia watching, because this is a topic for Valencia to chime in on.
So, Valencia, this is based on a post. And the post was a woman who, and this was also posted in Steezo Radio, their group as well. So, the Facebook group. Read what the woman said for me again.
Okay, I'm gonna read that, and then I think the next post is important.
Read
to read
it
also.
first.
She said, "Why do men love more deeply than women?" First of all, we haven't said we agree with that yet. Men understand that love takes time. Men do not base their love off of the way a woman makes them feel. Men do not allow romance to dictate their decision making on a spouse. Then she also says men understand what love truly is. Romance isn't love. Date night trips aren't expressions of love, they're perks of companionship. Now, there are no truer words spoken in this post. Those things are not expressions of love, they are literally perks of companionship. Women take the perks and think they are in love because they are basing their love off of pseudo actions. Let's just stop there for a second.
Well, and that's not true.
Well, I think it is true.
What?
That date nights, vacations, trips, aren't expressions of love. Those are perks of companionship.
So for the man who buys you things and no,
That does not mean he loves you. That does not. It does not. And that is a hard truth. It does not.
but I think for some that would mean that they, in their eyes, it does. They think, well, I put a roof over your head. I pay for this. I pay for that. I pay this bill. That means I love you.
No. No. It doesn't. It doesn't mean I love you. It could be one of the it could be a reason that love could be the reason I'm doing it. But the actions by themselves don't mean that. Valencia said, if it's love, if it is a love language, it could be.
That's where I was going with that, and that's what I was thinking of, Valencia. That there are people acts of, not acts of service, but gifts, and is their love language.
I'm so glad she said that, because listen, before I started studying the subject of love, and it's part of my doctoral dissertation, before I started studying the subject of love, I used to subscribe to the 5 Love Languages book and the 5 Love Languages thought process. To be honest with you, the 5 love languages are, and I always forget one. It don't matter what order I say these in, one of them is going to be missing. Get a quality time, physical touch, acts of service, gifts, and words of encouragement. Oh, I got them
affirmation.
All. Words of affirmation. None of those are indications of love. So what we're calling love languages is already throwing people off track, because none of that is an indication of love. Just because I touch you physically, that is not an indication of love. And if touching you so what we're talking about is touching you physically makes you feel good.
I think it's expressions, of love. It's a language, one of the languages of. I can speak English, but that doesn't mean what I speak in English is what I'm using as a. I do think it is some validity or guide in some way, not to how much I love you, not to the quality or quantity of love, but my expression of it, a description of how I do express it.
I would actually change, if I had to rewrite this thing now, I would change this to mean it is the 5 romance languages. It's not a love language, it's a romance language. Okay. Because acts of kindness might be how you expect to be romanced, but none of that indicates love. The best way to look at love is when romance, lust, and all of that stuff ends, love begins. And that is a tough reality for our Western culture, which is why we are, listen, it's the reason part of the African American community is struggling so much financially. I'm looking dead into the camera when I say this, because we get married thinking we're getting married for love. Love is supposed to be a minimum standard of how you live your life. We should be getting married to unite kingdoms and to increase in power. You are building legacies and stuff like that. Love is a minimum standard of how we live our life, but it's not. So love becomes the end goal. So we're literally starting at the beginning every time we get into relationships, when the love is the beginning. It's not the end. It's not the end destination. It is the beginning. You're supposed to enter the relationship full of love as who you are, not what you receive. But that should be who we are as we enter in. However, it's not. So we look for that to be the end all be all. So we get married, we get in relationships looking to receive that which we are not.
We get into relationship, men too, or just women? Men do this as well?
Oh God, yeah. All of us do this. We enter into relationships to receive that which we're supposed to be coming with. You can't put on another human being to make you feel a certain way about yourself that you couldn't even do. You don't love you. You don't see yourself the way you want me to see you. And you expect me to be able to convince you that you're worthy of something you can't convince yourself. You live with yourself and you can't convince yourself of that you're worthy to receive the things that you think I'm supposed to provide for you. Will Smith, I don't quote Will Smith often, but what he said to Jada and what they said changed their relationship and their marriage is so critical. He said, "You prove to me that you can be happy because I don't think it's possible." He said Jada used to want him to make her happy. And he said, "I've never seen you do that for yourself. You prove that it's possible. Then I can at least say, okay, it's doable." That is how a lot of us enter relationships. We enter relationships at a deficit. I'll call it the hole in the bucket.
But I believe that's men and women, because there are men who always talk about they're not happy.
Men and
things
women.
they need, that they'll be happy once they get this, once they get that. I get this much money, I have this, then that's when happiness is achieved.
Right.
I very rarely find anyone who would say at this point in their life they're happy.
That's very true. And here's why. We have been conditioned in the United States of America that the destination is the goal. I'm learning in my research on love and relationships and marriage that the journey is the goal, and the journey is yours and yours alone. What a relationship does is, when you're choosing a mate, you're choosing a companion, a partner to accompany you on your individual journey. And you are deciding to partner with this person on his or her individual journey. And together, we are going to unite to build or consolidate a kingdom that has a mission.
I'm thinking you guys, it's been taking me a moment to get on Facebook.
She's getting her technology.
Technology.
And they are just chiming in like crazy.
But you can always listen, and thank you everybody who's chiming in on Facebook. I so appreciate it. But we're always running smooth and fine on IntellectualRadio.com. So if you're chiming in there, I have no, I'm always connected there. So I appreciate everybody who listens in on all the various ways you can listen. So I will try to get to your comments so you can see some of the comments. Pull them up as I try to work on my own personal technology here. What are they saying?
So John said, many humans over time have tied themselves up in attempting to define love. There is no definition for love. I disagree with that. It is the action we forward and is accepted as virtuous by another person. I see where he's going with that. I somewhat agree. But love is, I don't necessarily think love is an action. I think love is the result. I mean, the action is the result of love. Love is more of the energy or the spirit you operate in. There are two main overarching enemy of spirits or energies at war: love and fear. We call fear in the Bible, the people call it the devil, and the enemy is love and fear. And then there's another one that there's a gender, masculine and feminine. Love is a spirit. Love is an energy you operate in. It is who you are. It is not what you do. What you do will always be a result of who you are. As a man thinketh, so is he. Who you are will show you what you do. For example, if I gave you money and you were a jerk before you had money, I'm giving you an opportunity to further express who you already are. That is what love is, and that is also what fear is. So love is who you are. It is not what you do. What you do is only an expression of who you are. So if you cannot receive love, it is typically because you are not it.
I'm on. Hey, you guys on Facebook. Thank you to everybody who is chiming in and sharing the show. I appreciate it. Mark Quinn said, "What is the definition of love?" And I'm gonna have to. I can't see the rest of them. Valencia agreed with one of your last statements.
But wait, Valencia agreed?
I know you scroll back.
Lord, I didn't see that.
So I want to go back to what is the
What?
definition of love. And then one question that was posed twice, Katie Lowe. Hey, you got to check out Rhythm Flow with Katie Lowe every Tuesday at 4:45 here on IntellectualRadio.com. Thank you so much to my Intellectual Radio family when you chime in. I really appreciate that. Is it possible to measure the depth of a person's love? And that truly was my very first question here when it said men love more. Do men love more deeply? What is the depth of someone determining that men are loving more deeply than a woman?
I don't know that you can determine the depth of a person's love. Well, maybe you can determine the depth of who a person is.
Their own personal depth
of who this person is.
But there, that to say generically that men love more deeply.
I don't know.
Understand love differently.
I really don't think it's based on gender. I really think emotionally mature people express love to its fullest extent. And sometimes in a relationship that's men, and other times in a relationship that's a woman.
I think you've said this now since I'm just joining you guys on Facebook. You joined me before I joined you. What is the definition of love? I think, have you said
I've expressed it. So to understand the definition of the word love, you have to go all the way back to when it was first stated in its origin. The word love was originally introduced in Hebrew, and it was introduced as the word ahav. Ahav. And the word ahav is translated because Hebrew has three different ways you translate: pictorially, four: pictorially, then what the words actually mean, and then numerically. And ahav actually translates as give, which is why when it was translated into Greek and then into English, love was translated as charity, which means to give. So love in and of itself means giving. And most people in relationships think love is receiving. You love me when I can receive from you. And oftentimes what I've now told clients, it has changed the course of people's lives. I have had people come to me and say, I don't feel loved. And then the question I ask is, what are you doing in the relationship? And the answer is almost always the same. I've stopped. And I said, well, has he or she picked up on and you'll always hear, I can see him trying more. I can see her trying more, but I still don't feel loved. And I said, because love, the feeling you're looking for, you receive when you give. You have stopped giving, and therefore you can no longer feel what you're trying to experience in the relationship. So here's my task. Begin giving again into the relationship and see if the feeling comes back. And every single time it does.
Your 21 day. I will say that I have actually been a
Talk to him, Juan. Talk to him.
I actually had this course with James a few years ago, and because typically, and I want to go to what you said, Valencia, so I hope I don't lose it.
I'm not gonna let you lose. I got it here.
So if I stop feeling loved, and I don't know if anyone else does this, then in return, now this, I'm saying this all in past tense because I've graduated from the James course of like you said, Marquand, giving as in a transition or to serve, giving as giving love. He's saying, he's asking about the definition.
I'll you know what? Let's the definition. Go ahead, Wanda. What you're about to say.
But what if I stop feeling loved, I stop doing in return. So if you're not going to do it, I'm not going to do it either. If I'm not feeling this, you don't do this for me, then why should I keep doing this for you?
That is 99% of the way we all think. But what happens when you start doing?
So your challenge was to me, and I don't know if I should be giving out the James Borchet tip guide.
That's okay. What was my challenge to you?
21 days. We had 21 days of giving.
Just giving.
No matter what I received or measuring what I get in return, or weighing that I'm not getting in return. I just give, and continue to give for those straight 21 days.
And did the feeling that you were looking for come back? I'm just asking.
You made me a believer.
I'm just asking.
I think after the end of those 21 days, it was exactly as you said it would be. That but that is so hard.
It's a hard
if you don't
thing
do
to do
this for me, then it's very hard for me to keep giving to you. And I mean, that really was a practice I had done for so long that is very habitual. That why should I keep doing this for you if you don't give it to me in return? And I will say you made me a believer on that one. So I want to get to some of the comments. Valencia said, and I did lose it because the
Which
comments.
Which one? Was it about joining someone's journey?
And that was on our show about submission. If you want to go back a couple of weeks, the end of September, James was here and we talked about submitting to the mission. I think one example Valencia brought up is that when her husband said I don't have it in front of me. Read it for me.
Her husband said he made it clear that he knew where he was going. He just needed someone to ride with him, not someone on their separate issue.
And that's what we talked about submission, that you subject to the mission.
You're to the mission. And what Valencia is saying here is her husband was saying, I'm on my own personal journey. I just need you to ride with me while I'm on my journey. That's right. And in turn, I will ride with you on your journey. I will help you. I will back you up. I will be there for you. I will pray for you. When you're frustrated, I'll be patient with you. When you can't do the things that you would normally do, I'll be patient with you. When you're angry, I'll be kind. When you flip off at the mouth, I'm going to come to you with a soft word. Those are expressions of character, and the character you have is love.
So Marquin's question, giving as in transaction or to serve? When you say love is giving, or I think that's what he's maybe referring to.
So if I had to describe love, what giving means, love is giving of oneself freely with no expectation of anything in return. That is what charity is. When you give to a nonprofit organization, charity, with you, typically the right heart is no expectation of return.
They didn't say thank you. I gave them this. And
no expectation of return. And most of us give with we give to get. That is actually narcissism. If Anna Nicole's watching, she about to chime in a second. That's what a narcissist will give and wait for you to show your appreciation. That's not love. Love is giving with zero expectation of return, which means you can't keep score, which is why the 21-day thing always works. Because if you're not keeping score, I'm not giving to you based on what you do for me or what you did. So I now take my focus off of checking the boxes of, did he do this? Did she do that? Did they do this? And I take my focus on becoming love.
So Chris says love is giving. It is a commitment to service of another.
Right.
And
that's true.
And which is very hard because we are very used to the scoreboard.
It is absolutely the antithesis of what we teach in the United States. It's the opposite of what we teach. It's the opposite of what we see in romance novels or romance television drama. It's the opposite of that. But true love is giving with no expectation of return.
So John said, if I stand still and do nothing ever, no one will ever know or accept that I love them. If I act or speak or do something that another person accepts virtuously, and the comment went away. So
they'll know love from me, feel love from me, or experience love from me. QED. Love is an action thing. The action, John, is a result of love. The action itself isn't love. Because I can do the same exact thing you did for the same exact person you're doing it for and have absolutely a different motive. Do I love them or did you love them? You understand? So love is a result of who you are. If I did exactly what you did to get something from the person, I am not operating in the spirit of love. If you did exactly the same actions, but you did it for no gain, only because it's who you are, You're operating in the spirit of love. I'm actually operating in the spirit of manipulation.
So Hector said, in that case, nobody loves. Even parents want love in return from their children. Facts, you at least want or Valencia said, facts, you at least want respect. Well,
Even parents want love in return from their children. That is no. Children aren't capable of giving you that kind of love. What so parents, the a parental love is the exact is more of an expression of love, because you're giving to a child who cannot give to you.
when you have an infant, you're not expecting
You don't expect
love
anything.
You don't expect anything when you have your baby, and
because
you're
they're
there
incapable of giving it to you.
You don't expect this love from them. That's probably when you're at your most vulnerable of just giving.
Exactly.
That's probably when you're at your truest state of loving, because they can't say I love you. They can't say
they're just
anything. Crying.
Yes.
And you have to feed them. They don't.
So we're all capable of loving. We all have the spirit of love. We all do, because there is someone in your life somewhere that you give to unconditionally. Unconditionally. You already know they can't do anything for you, won't ever do anything. There is whether it is a child, a brother, a mother, parents. A parent, there is somebody. But then there are people that we choose to place conditions on our companionship. And listen, let me be clear. That's okay. I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that's not love.
So Hector, you're new chiming in. I appreciate that.
That's my boy. I've known Hector for over 20 years.
Oh, okay. Thank you for chiming in. I appreciate it. Chris says, narcissists are selfish and always keep score. That's why they are incapable of love, in his opinion.
Yeah, but they're very capable of the actions that look like love. That's why they're so darn good.
It's
so that's why you cannot measure love by inaction, because you can put two people to do the exact same action to the same person, and one of them might be operating in the spirit of love, and one of them might be operating in the spirit of manipulation. You cannot judge love by the action.
So he's saying, you're admitting then, John is saying, so Mr. Borshade, you're admitting now that love is rolling away.
Is an action thing. A stone cannot give love or no love because it does nothing. Humans are action oriented, so we are able to show or do love whether we accept or do nothing or do not expect a thing. We have to act as love or show we love. Love is an action thing. No, John, it is not. The action is the result of love. If you can get off the action for a second and hear me. If I give, let's say, okay, I'm gonna give a name out. Let's just say Cynthia. I love Cynthia. You want something from Cynthia. I know that Cynthia wants her nails done. She never mentioned it, but I know she wants her nails done. And I just got a bonus or whatever. I got extra money. So I said, Cynthia, here's $100. Go get your nails done. I'm gone. And you say, Cynthia, here's $100. Go get your nails done. And then later tonight I want to come by and I want to see what they do. Which one of us? It's the same action. Which one of us is operating in love? You cannot judge love based off action, because you must judge love. Love is about who you are, not what you do.
So Valencia said, but yet when our children are grown, we surely tell them about our sacrifices and what we expect and respect.
That's true. That is not about love. What you're telling them is, when you were younger,
that's the scorecard.
That's the scorecard. When you were younger, here's the things that I did. That ain't got nothing to do with love, though.
That doesn't prove love, though, because now I did all these for you, so I'm expecting you to do this in return. No, that's no different, though, of not really being why did you do it? So they give you respect in return? No, that's just teaching them character, something that should be taught as a character, that's not the condition of me doing these for you. Now that in return, you have to give me these things back.
It's not so here's what I'm trying to do. I am on this show on a crusade today to clear up the misnomer about love. What Hector said is, if most most people don't know what love actually is, then they do expect love back from their kids. No, that's not true. Just because you don't know what something is does not mean that it isn't that thing. Just because you don't know what it is, what you're expecting from your children isn't love. What you're expecting from your children may be respect. What you're expecting from your children might be honor. What you're expecting from your children might be appreciation.
All the things that you taught them to do, which isn't based, they respect people they don't even love. I
Right,
mean, it's
exactly. But
you
they respect
teach
their
that's not.
teacher. That doesn't mean they love them. They appreciate the ice cream man, but that don't mean they love them. They appreciate. Listen, what you're expecting is different words, different characteristics. That's not necessarily love. Just because you don't know what it is, or a person, not you specifically, doesn't know what love is, does not mean that it does not exist in its rarest form.
And it doesn't mean that other person can't love in return. Just you may not know what love is.
Absolutely.
Doesn't mean your children don't know what love is automatically, that they can't love you in return. So Chris said, good parents don't expect much from their kids except respect. They still love them unconditionally, knowing that it may never be returned. And
straight up, there are some parents who love their kids without respect. The kid does not show respect, and the kid can literally blow up the building in front of them, and they will ride with the kid. There are people who are capable of doing that. And Marquin said, can we call in? The number is 708-223-8953. That's 708-223-8953.
You're tuned in to He Said, She Said on IntellectualRadio.com. We've been talking about love, and do men love more deeply than women? And so it brought us in this full spiral of explaining love, because to determine whether they love more deeply, I guess we all have to realize, do we really understand love? And so that's what we've been talking about. I want to give a special shout out to Allstate Insurance. Whether you need auto, home, or life insurance, I'd love for you to give Sal a call, 708-599-5100. And so we're talking about here on IntellectualRadio.com, do men love more deeply than women? And so there's a very good, because to really understand love, to really realize, do I understand, or do I give love? Do I understand it to give love? And we talked about what
I want to change it from do I give love to am I love?
Am I love? So,
because love is who you are. What you do is based on who you are.
Love is based on who you are, not okay. Hi, this is He Said, She Said on IntellectualRadio.com. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Marquin. This is Q.
Hey, Q.
What's up, Q?
What's up, man? I can't type. First of all, I hate typing. That's one. And two, so I can't get everything out that I want to ask.
So this is a perfect way to do it. Thank you for calling in.
Yes, that's why I asked if I could. So my question is, one is it's a couple of things. One, where does logic lie in the equation? Because what it seems as if there a balance is what I'm asking. Because you say that it's about loving unconditionally is me giving without looking for a return. But if I am doing such, and let's say I'm doing such, but being abused, or the love that I do give is is somewhat being abused, or I'm being abused, or something is happening. When does is me not giving a form of love? Can me not giving or choosing not to give be a form of love? Like maybe loving myself, recognizing the value and worth of myself, and logically understanding that by me committing, or I guess serving or giving to this cause, person, or situation can actually be detrimental to myself. Is that where does that? I'm trying to make.
I'm so glad that you asked that question, especially with this being with domestic violence being so high, with this being the month that we discussed that. So first of all, thank you for calling in.
One second before you answer. Was that your only question, Q?
Yeah, no, that's
okay.
That's mainly it. Yeah.
All right, then I'm gonna have him answer it. And thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it. I love that you call every week. I know you don't call every week, but I love that you call in and add your points. And good luck to you and your babies. He has a new baby.
Oh, that's what's up. Good luck. Oh, he is love to that baby. I guarantee it.
Oh, and he's a fitness and quantum What's the name of your business?
It's Quantum Martial Arts and Fitness, and actually, we just signed the lease this past week. We will be opening. We're constructing a space downtown Chicago. We'll be
Woo!
opening in February. So, Quantum Martial Arts and
Well,
Fitness. Thanks for having me.
congratulations, my brother. Congratulations, man, and
Thank
best
you.
of luck to you and your baby and your family, man,
And your business.
and your business.
Thank you
Congrats.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye, y'all.
So his question was explain this question for me.
Where does logic come in? Number one. And if I am giving love, when do I start protect myself and when do I not be abused? So the way that the question was framed is so perfect. I cannot express to you how perfect it is, because this is how it is the majority of us would frame that type of question. So the mental, so love is about who you are and the space that you are in as you're thinking about your interaction with the other person comes from a position of self-preservation, which is the opposite of love. It is the opposite of love. So for example, if you had a baby and the baby is spitting up on the carpet, when it goes to the bathroom, it defecates throughout its diaper and it gets on the carpet, and you said, how do I make sure that I keep my carpet clean? What you're doing is expressing a deep feeling for the carpet. But if you turn the same question on the same problem and say, why is my baby defecating in that way? How do I make sure that I can help make sure that that's contained? I see why my baby is spitting up. It's same thing, same situation, a different paradigm that you're looking at it from. Now let's turn that into the love situation. If you had a person that you felt was abusing, and abuse really means abnormal use, abnormally using you. If you look at this thing to protect me, preserve me, then that is not a spirit of love, or some would say it's a spirit of I'm giving to myself. Another paradigm would be, I need to set parameters for this person because this person does not have the ability to set parameters. And now I am becoming selfless, and I am contending or thinking of how can I continue to give to this other person, but I am now giving what this person needs. So love is not the absence of chastisement. Love is not the absence of boundaries. Love is not the absence of respect. Love is not the absence of that. Because I love my child, I teach my children to respect me. I teach my children to respect me, not because I need respect, but because they need to have respect. Do you get what I'm saying? Not because I need respect, because I am comfortable in my own skin, respect me or not. But I am teaching my children respect because they need it.
You're giving them the tool. You're giving them the tool of respect. Teaching people with respect, but not because I'm expecting it you will get it in return because you're teaching them to respect in general,
as
to be
character.
Good people. It's your role and goal as a parent is to give them the tools to be good people. So you're setting them up with those tools, but not only for the thing of, so when I get older, now you gonna give me this back.
That is actually a manipulative, narcissistic paradigm. And I'm not calling any of our callers anybody a narcissist, but I'm telling you the paradigm of I am doing this to get, I'm giving to get, is narcissism and manipulation.
So go back to because I think some people will really need this. Like you said, this is the month, domestic abuse month. And when we're talking about, because if you say something isn't working in my relationship, so I'm just going to keep giving. I'm going to be love and keep giving to the abusive person. Explain that again, because I really don't.
Okay,
I understood what you were saying, but I'm not sure. I really would like somebody to walk away with why that's not what you're saying to do. You're not saying love is to keep giving, explain that again, please.
I'm not saying love is to be the I'm not saying when you love, you must have an absence of boundaries. In fact, love in its purest form sets boundaries. but it doesn't set boundaries for self-protection only. It sets boundaries for the protection of all of us involved in the relationship. I started to say transaction in the relationship. So for example, I think first of all, I think we overuse the word abuse. In fact, I had a client that I talked to earlier this week who used the word abuse, and what I realized was after a while that what they were calling abuse was misunderstanding of the other of another person's general mode of operandi. And believe it or not, it was a man saying a woman was abusive. She's verbally abusive. She's emotionally abusive. She doesn't do this. She doesn't do that. She doesn't do this. She doesn't do that. She doesn't do this. First of all, in order to have that paradigm and that frame of mind, you're in scorekeeper mode. And you can't be in give mode when you're in scorekeeper mode. You just cannot. And so my question to him was, what is she going through? And he said, I don't know. I said, that's your first major problem. I always tell people, you've heard the paradigm, judge a person by their actions. And I tell people, you're not qualified to judge a person's actions because you don't know what they're going through. You don't have their experiences. You must judge a person's intent, which means you need to know the person. So if I've been with you 5 years and I know who you are and I know your character and something appears to change, you may be going through something. So I need to do is identify what are you going through? And when you do that, you almost always come together. But most of us, because of our own trauma, when we begin to feel something different is happening in the relationship, we go into self-protection mode. We don't go into protect the team mode. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Q said, thank you for the answer. So Chris said, love does not keep score. Logic is calculating and therefore often self-seeking.
He can just listen. The doors of the church are open if there be one. That is a message right there. Love does not keep score. Logic is calculating.
Logic is calculating?
Logic is analytical and calculating. Yes.
How?
That is exactly what it is.
Explain.
I am deducing this plus this equals that. Logic is, which means I am scorekeeping the entire way down the field. Which also means I'm not freely acting. I'm not free. I'm reserved. Here's what I tell people. Oftentimes, what you think the other person means when they do is what you would mean if you did. And so you often are in a relationship with yourself. You're judging actions based on your character, not necessarily based on the character of the person you're with. And so most of us spend our lives in relationships projecting and having a relationship with the man in the mirror, which is why you can hear men say all women are, and you hear women say all men are, because what you're really in a relationship with yourself. So your version of all men are, and your version of all women are, because the woman you keep dating is you, and the man you keep dating, and let me say to the men, the woman you keep dating is you, and that's the you that's in your head, and the woman you keep dating, and the man you keep dating to the women is you. It is the male version of you. This is why you run into the same relationship. So I tell people, stop running, because you can't outrun you. You can't outrun you.
Valencia said it's called strange behavior, and this happens when a need isn't being met.
Whose need?
When you love, you recognize this, and you want to help them meet that.
Whose need, Valencia? Can you clarify that? And Valencia, if you got a chance, call in. But you probably, you would have called in. Right? You would have called in if you could. Whose need isn't being met?
Whose strange behavior, and that means when a need isn't being met. When you love, you recognize this, and you want to help them meet that.
I think I agree with that, but I just want to know whose need isn't being met. Is it your need isn't being met? And so who's
having the strange behavior? That's the part I'm confused about, because if you're I was thinking the same thing. Q. He said. So logic is a negative. When we say oftentimes you're not being logical because if 2 plus 2, 1 plus equal 2 plus 2 equals 4, that's logical.
But so does 3 plus 1. And so does
True.
1 plus 3. And so does 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1.
So it's not that it's that you have come to only 2 plus 2 equals 4 is when the logic is off. When that this one way is the only way because that's the way you want it done. That's the way you believe. That's the way you're expecting it. That's what I want in return is 2 plus 2 equals 4. I want my 4 to be 2 plus 2, not 3 plus 1. Don't
not
give
1
me
plus 3.
Not 1 plus 3. Don't give me that kind of that 0 plus 4.
Not 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1.
I want it to look like 2 plus 2 because that's my logic.
That's my logic.
I got it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So when you're open that love can come from 3 plus 1, 2 plus 2,
1 plus 1 plus 1
plus 1,
3.5 plus 0.5. Yes.
Oh, I can't even figure that one out.
You get what I'm saying? So, and most of us aren't open to that kind of stuff. Most of us are not in a relationship
because we've been taught that 2 plus 2 equals 4 all day, every day. Thank you very much.
Bingo. And so your logic is based on your experiences. And therefore, you cannot judge me based on your logic because you have not had my experiences. So the best way to do that is to help me along my journey by finding out what I'm going through, why I'm
on 3 plus 1.
Right, if I'm on 3 plus 1, because we might be looking at 4.
I'm looking at 4 from the 2 plus 2. You looking at it from 3 plus 1, and we're arguing.
Right, but we might actually be looking at 4. I'm telling you right now, straight up, no joke, the majority of the couples that come together are all saying the same thing.
But so we're arguing over how
money to get you to shut up and see the other person's point of view. And it's almost always the same point of view.
So you've been tuned in there. She said on IntellectualRadio.com. There are people just trying to, to our honorary co-host. And thank you. I do feel like all my Facebook friends who chime in are co-hosts. So I appreciate you all doing this. Two says, of course, men love more deeply than women.
Hey, Q, call back in.
No, nobody said that.
No, but Q said, I want to call back. There's no limit on the number of calls you can do unless. Hold on, I gotta ask the super producer.
Oh, so yes, there's no limit. There's no limit.
On the number of calls.
Run this hours and 55 minutes.
I gotta ask one.
Forget the super producer, owner extraordinaire of IntellectualRadio.com.
Chris said logic is fine, but it's also limited to your own experiences. Most of us cannot reason. Most of us do not approach research or logic, as I call it, open. We go into it to prove what we already know.
We're trying to prove that 2 plus 2 equals 4 right. Versus following the logic that you're right. If you say 3 plus 1 is 4 as well. Did I just hang up?
Twice. Yeah, call back again. We clicked it twice on accident.
I'm sorry, I'm moving too fast. Call back, caller. I do believe that was Q. I'm sorry, Q, and I know you mobily and keeping it moving.
There it is.
There it is. IntellectualRadio.com. Is this our boy Q?
Yeah, all James had to do was say the word, so I was gonna call back in. So here's what I was meaning by the statement of logic. First of all, let me say this: this is a good show. This is like one. You have great shows, but this one right here is just on fire. It's crazy. So this one is like, man. So what I meant by that is because my wife came in, right, and so she was like, "What you listening to?" And I was telling her, and we both someone had a question. So, for example, when my wife and I got together, and I'm going to try to do this as short as quickly as possible. And when my wife and I got together, at the time we got together, we were both working. We both met at the same job, actually. Mm-hmm. But there was a point where I ended up leaving. I ended up leaving the job that I was at because I was going to do something else. And it was a certain point where it was like, man, I got lazy. I'm going to be honest. I was tired of, working a certain gig. I was just, man. And it was actually hurting the household because the household really depended on both incomes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and was like, babe, listen, you got to do something. Like you have to do something because it's hurting us.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard her, and so I did. Now, which leads up to our last phone call, me having my own, which led up to now having my own business and so on and so forth. And we're doing it pretty decent right now. However, if I made a different choice and I decided not to, and I was just like, I'll get to it. Would it have been not logical for her to say, you know what, I've done this for as long as I can, and I've held on for as long as I can. I'm sorry, I have to make a difficult decision. I may have to, I'm going to have to possibly end this relationship, and I have to go in a different direction because we're hurting right here, and I'm doing what I can. I'm contributing. We made an agreement. You were contributing. You decided not to. I respect it. But now you've not shown any effort, and it's really being detrimental to us. If she chooses after a certain point to say, you know what, I may have to step back if this continues, and then decides to step back because it continued, making that logical decision, that's not a negative, I wouldn't think. And so this is a question to you.
Oh yeah, let's dive into this. Although I should be charging for this one. But let's dive into this.
It'll help us all, James.
Let's dive into this. So
he's giving. He's so loving.
From her specific only vantage point, and I want him to stay on the line. It would have appeared logical, but you said you couldn't take it anymore, right? Why? Right. What was going on in your mind, in your spirit, that it was tough for you to take it anymore?
It was one that
without going too deep into it.
I just couldn't care for the. I wanted to do my passion. I wanted to work my passion. I'll say that.
And so every day
doing something I didn't want to do.
Every day when you got up, Q, did you feel more and more drained going to do something that you weren't impassioned by?
Indeed.
Okay, now, would it have been more logical to recognize that I had a good contributing man to the relationship for quite some time, and now something changed? Could it be something is wrong? And if we as a team can get to the bottom of what is wrong, then we as a team can help restore this person back to to the kingship that I met him in, and we as a team can thrive again. Would that not be more logical?
I don't think it would be just as. It's not more. Yes, I agree.
So, actually, would that be more the spirit of love?
My question, but here's my thing. My question was what it almost sounds as if you guys are saying that logic is a negative in the sense of calculating. Period. You know what I'm saying? Like at one point when you all were saying that logic is calculating, it seemed as if. And I know I framed it in a negative light, in which I'm glad you brought it back into a positive light. What I'm saying is that logic and love can coexist together. I guess that's what I'm ultimately asking.
Very good question.
Very good question. So we can. So first of all, I want to thank you for calling. I think we got it now. So
we got it now.
The answer to the question is logic and love can coexist if it's true logic.
Right.
If it's true logic, because some logic is not logic. It is my own personal experience.
It's from my vantage point.
Right.
It's what I want, what I need. And my logic is based on trying to explain to you why 2 + 2 is 4.
But there is
logic.
Right. But there is logic that takes all vantage points into
3
account.
+ 1 big. So now to listen to you, 3 + 1 is you're saying that I'm not happy. I'm not happy. So why So
let me walk through
that.
So the first question is, super producer Earl, Wanda, do we agree that this is 4? First,
I see 4.
You see, super producer said yes. I see 4. How did you get to 4? I went 1 + 1 + 1 + 5 + 0.5 + 0.5.
That's confusing.
That's how you got to 4.
And I'm going to fight you on that.
Why did you take that route?
But most people, even why this becomes what it is just that's logical. But by the same way, that's difficult. So why are you taking that difficult way to get to 4? And this is how our arguments go.
Now you starting now what you're doing is operating in the spirit of self-serving. So the question is, why did you take that route? Help me. I use this, add this tool to your vocabulary. Help me understand why you decided to add 1 + 1 + 1 plus 0.5 plus 0.5. Help me understand why you decided to do it that way. And then when the other person talks, you're not listening to change their mind, to tell them that there was a better way.
2 is much easier. I just don't understand why you want to do add the 0.5 and all of that, because if you just did it my way, you'd be done faster.
No, you're not listening for that. You're listening to see how this person thinks, so that when another situation arises where there's a conflict between what you see and what they said, you can understand how they think.
And you're asking them to help you see it. Because then if that moment I can say, well, I'm not happy here. I'm not happy at work. I don't feel like I'm living my purpose in it. Then with that conversation, I see how you got to 4.
Bingo. And we do not spend time trying to understand how the other person thinks.
How they're thinking, their logic, how their logic is working. We try to make you understand my logic.
I want you to understand my. And so because we don't understand how a person thinks, we rarely, and I mean, I need to look right into the camera when I say that, we rarely correctly judge a person's character, because we don't understand how the person thinks. Because we don't ask questions to understand how a person thinks. We ask questions to show you where you're wrong based on how I think. So we want to be understood, but we don't want to give understanding. And if more couples would simply seek to understand, then be understood, you can cut divorce in half. You can cut people leaving good people, because a lot of I deal with people who are both good a lot of times and ready on the brink of either ending the relationship, and I'm like, you're 2 good people, you just don't have tools. So if we can get more tools in your toolbox, then 2 good people can stay together and really do some good work together. You get what I'm saying?
The last show I was on, someone said, do you prepare somebody to be with somebody else in the relationship? Like, have you left somebody? And I think that's kind of what you're saying. 2 good people could be together, and it may seem like they've gone off to be better with, but that work is done. They may leave that relationship and then decide to do the work and on themselves and their thinking and the way
if they ever come to grips with who they are.
And that's where it starts.
Because what ends up happening is, you might have 2 good people who decide to separate, and you have another person here who has not done the work, who goes into the relationship, and then they get through the honey, they go to the same, it's called limerick stage. The limerick stage is when you have all of the feelings that feel like what we call love, which we now know is really romance. And then that stage could last 6 months, a year and a half, where you think this is romance, and you never actually address any issues, because you actually never let the person close enough to address any issue, to heal. A true loving relationship starts to heal wounds that you hid
within yourself. Not there,
right?
You're not healing
there. It starts to heal
within you.
But here's how it heals wounds. The first thing it does is it injures the wound. Think about that for a second. It exposes that there is hurt here, and we call that injury. But it exposes that there's hurt in this particular area, or there's trauma that is unresolved, or there's issues that are unresolved. And so what ends up happening when a person stumbles upon a unresolved issue, they tend to blame the other person who helped them uncover the unresolved issue, or they tend to retreat and walk away. So I'll give you an example. If I'm in a relationship with you and I have a lock on my phone, and I've always had a lock on my phone, but you came out of a relationship where he was cheating, and part of the signs of him cheating was he locked his phone, and you couldn't have the password, and you asked me for my password, and I'm like, why do you need my password? What we might now uncover is an unresolved issue you have. But what might happen is I might become the victim or the characterization of your unresolved issue. See, all men are this. You just are no good. You might cheat, etc., etc., etc. And I just lock my phone because I've locked my phone since the day I had it.
I wanted to read Valencia's response. I'll have you, but I want to go back to what Mark Quinn said. The key word is question and looking for the why. And I think that is so much part of the issue, and why I do the show is to help us communicate better, men and women. And I think that's one thing that's not always done. We question, but for you to understand where I'm coming from.
Right.
Not to hear your why, not to hear you, not to hear your logic, not to hear your process, why you came up with that,
Right.
and lovingly be prepared to help you. Whatever the answer is, I'm not to turn it around, or not waiting
or to explain to me why it was wrong. No,
or explain so but truly to understand what's going on with you. Where are you at? What's
Bingo.
your why? What's going on?
Yes. If people in the listening audience just change that paradigm or that perspective, I have done my job today. We have done our job, because there will be some healed people. If you can go into a relationship and just say, you know what, help me understand why you did it that way, without saying, well, you should have done it this way, or you could have done it that way, or isn't this a better way of thinking about it, or what about help me, or what about my way? If we could just go into it to understand why, help me understand why you did it that way. And then when they give you the answer, be okay, like, oh, now it makes sense.
Really, to understand, not to change.
To understand. Listen, as a leader, it changed my company when I did that. Like, okay, you know what, guys? My team members will call me now and say, hey, I did X, Y, Z. The first thing I say is, help me understand why you did it that way. Because I already know I wouldn't have chose to do it that way. I would not have chosen it to go that way. But help me understand why you chose for it to go that way. And then when they go through their logic, I'm like, oh, okay, it makes sense now. Now, what I really want to say, well, I used to really want to say, it makes sense why you did it that way, but I would never do it that way, and what you did was wrong. But now I'm genuinely like, okay, what you did makes sense.
And what I like about that is it goes back to, and I want to read Chris's, I'm going to read it real quick before it goes. Logic is not negative, but logic is not love. Logic is just an intellectual process of trying to make sense of something. Love can use logic, but love will only use logic to provide the highest good for someone else.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Oh, but Valencia. First of all, for those of you all who don't know, me and Valencia are cool. That's my girl. So we
and she's part of the Pam to my radio. The he said, she said. Yeah, she's so part of our team.
So, but she asked a great question.
Yes.
She said, "Would you unlock your phone to help the healing?" If I'm emotionally mature that day, yes. I'm just.
But most people are not.
If I'm emotionally mature that day, and I realize that this is a issue that needs healing, absolutely I would. And the reason I put my comment to her on the show was maybe, because some of us are not emotionally mature. Some of us. It is difficult for the first response to not be.
I was about to say that. My initial response, and I have to work on this all the time, this is a constant, is to not be reactionary. If I react the way my initial response, because it's never the healed person who's worked at Journey to Wholeness Center. I had to go there, who's worked with James Bourget. That's not the first person. It's what I've been conditioned to do that comes out first. Right. My conditioning and years of not handling things right would be first off. So it would first off be, why you, and then I'd have to say to myself, I have nothing. Here.
What's this really about?
But I would like them to understand why. I would need them to understand their why. Because I really do think it's important to work on your healing as well. Right. Because I can't keep proving things to make you be healed. Someone's not totally, she's saying her husband did it. I'm sure but you have to heal yourself at sometimes too. I can't keep putting the Band-Aid on this if I realize it's part of your process, I'm willing to be in the process, but I would like for someone to also heal themselves, because this will always be a trigger. I can't have every time my phone to be a trigger.
But you know what? Let me say this. Love will unlock the phone.
Ooh,
Love will unlock. Love
you just do it.
will unlock. Love will unlock the phone. Fear, defense won't. Because my first reaction in the past would have been, what the heck?
But you're right. It's fear. Right.
What? Why?
I got
what you looking for? But love will be like, oh, here, take the phone. Here go the code. You get what I'm saying? Love will unlock the phone. So Valencia, your husband, stand up guy, tell him I said what's up. That's what I'm talking about. He is operating, it sounds like, in the spirit
pure
of love. In pure love.
Pure love minus the fear. Minus, because we operate out of fear probably more often than we operate out of love.
We often operate out of fear. Because again, an unemotionally intelligent James, before the life coach lessons, before the doctoral this and that and the other, would have immediately become defensive. What you looking for? Why you need me?
I have nothing to hide.
I ain't got nothing to hide. Have I ever given you a reason?
I don't do nothing. I'm home every.
I would have immediately gone on the defensive. Now, if you say, I would be like, oh, here, check it out. Here's what's here. Take a look. Here's the code. Then I would ask, but why? Help me understand why you felt that was necessary.
So Valencia said, love will unlock the phone, and that love heals.
That I agree with you. Love will unlock the phone. I'm getting nervous. Me and Valencia are agreeing a lot today. I'm getting nervous, Valencia.
Valencia's operating out of love.
Love will unlock the phone. And that kind of love provides the platform to heal.
Doesn't heal you.
That kind of love doesn't heal, because what it can do is give you comfort in that moment. You must then turn around and do the work. The question you must ask yourself is, why did I need him to unlock the phone?
That has to be working in conjunction.
That is where healing is, right?
That's what healing is.
That's where the healing
getting
is.
Someone to do it and prove that they love you and prove that they're helping you heal and will do that doesn't mean that there's another step. And I have to do this for myself, but quite often is to ask myself, why am I asking this? Why am I triggered? What T Bizzle is a committal. Please know that.
She is a comedian, y'all.
Literally, she is a comedian.
And she didn't disappoint.
What did she say? T Bizzle, my T Bizzle with the giggle in the middle, said love will unlock the phone, pay the mortgage, and keep the cable on. Fear will make you do a self-inflicted gunshot to the feet. But that's true. So Chris said, very true. Your initial response is often based on your own conditioning and experiences, good and bad. Negative experiences often leave scars that resurface when triggered.
Bingo.
Go on, Chris.
Come on, preach. Come on, preach.
Go on, stepbrother.
That's true. That is true. And so here's the thing that we have to understand. Nobody, and I don't care what anybody tells you, I've been doing this a long time. Nobody, and I mean nobody. I don't care if he's the life coach, and I'm talking about myself. I don't care if he's the preacher. I don't care who he is. Nobody comes into a relationship 100% healed. Nobody. If they did, they are now Jesus. Nobody comes into the relationship 100% healed. So everybody has a journey that they're taking, a journey to wholeness. Plug intended. Everybody has a journey that they're taking. So you have to understand and recognize where you are on your journey. And it's okay to be honest with yourself. You might need him to unlock the phone.
But
you might.
And hopefully you're with the person who's willing to
do that. You might need him to unlock the phone, but you also have to be willing to ask yourself the question, why do I need him to unlock the phone?
Get to the core
that's where
for
the
yourself.
Healing begins. That's not where it ends. That's where it begins. And he too might have to ask himself, why was I nervous about unlocking my phone? Because he might have a scar where he wasn't trusted, even though he was trustworthy. And that might be a scar.
So it happens both. And I think Valencia said for her husband, that came from a person that has understanding from doing his own cleansing.
Exactly.
And which made it so easy for him to say, here, take the phone. Here's the code.
Well, let me be clear. It may have made it appear easy.
Appear easy. Yes.
Because a lot of time we men often make the mistake of making things look easy when it's really not. When we're wrestling, but we don't say we're wrestling. And I don't know that he was wrestling or not, but I want to throw that out there for the men who make things look easy and then go into their secret place and are depressed because they don't feel respected or they don't feel appreciated. And I often say you're not being honest and open about your own struggles.
So John says he's still waiting for someone to describe an incidence of love affirmation that does not involve action.
Love affirmation.
He's saying, I think he's still debating because the score. He wants why explain
Okay.
why.
Well, I know why.
Okay.
John is looking for evidence of love. So it would be like John looking at a tree. No, it would be like John picking an apple, right? And saying, and not recognizing that the apple is just the fruit, the tree is where it came from. So the action is the apple, but love is the tree.
He's saying love isn't shared.
Love is
Love is love.
recognize. He's telling him to stop quoting commission. You can't recognize love unless it is shared. However, love exists.
It is.
Love is. It exists before you share it, or it is unshareable. Now, let's use that logic. It cannot be shared if it does not already exist to be shared. Therefore, the sharing is not love. It is an indication of what already exists.
Valencia said John is disagreeing that love isn't an action, and she's saying I agree with John.
I know they both agree. The vast majority of the United States thinks that love is an action, and I am telling you, the action is a result of love.
It's like we're saying the same. I want you all to think of 3 + 1. You all are saying 3 + 1 equals 4, and we're saying 2 + 2 equals 4.
In this instance, we're not.
We're not.
And here's why. Because if you think love is an action, you will judge people based on actions.
Their actions.
And,
right.
And their actions may not indicate love. I don't want people being taken advantage of by narcissists, sociopaths, manipulators.
You can be manipulated. That love, if you believe that all love comes with an action, then me buying you this, it means I love you. I mean, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. That means I love you. If you can operate and have actions with the intention that isn't based out of love.
That isn't love. So love can't be the action. Because two people can do the same action and one could love and one could hate. To be honest with you. Same action.
Rotten apples come from trees too.
Exactly. I'll give you a prime example. One president could send the country to war to protect an ally. Another president could send the country to war to gain capital for a company. Same action. One is based on love. One is based on greed.
But I will say, as my messed up thinking, and I'm working on myself, I'm going to look at you bringing me to war to help an ally. Like, why you got to help them? I mean, I don't
but
worry about your own house.
Based on my experience, I would look at it that way as well. But I could understand when one person's action,
right,
than I do the other person's actions. One might be based on love, but the other one is definitely based on greed.
Right.
I could buy you shoes. I could buy you some Ferragamos because I want to sleep with you.
Valencia says that's shallowing our point of view. That is
literal. You got to think about it. People get taken advantage of by sociopaths all the time, thinking that the actions the sociopath did was love.
But people do show actions from love. I mean, I see where they're questioning it because they feel like love is an action. You can't show someone you love them without doing something. So I would like for us to try to help
you
the
can't
explanation.
show someone that you can show someone that you love them by being. Love, okay, love is a being, it is not a doing. We are human beings, not human doings.
And when you operate out of being, every action you do is love.
Bingo. When you operate out of doing, some actions might be love and some actions might not be. We are it. I know why this is difficult, because we are based on transactions. And what I'm saying is not transactional, it's transformational. If we can get past the transactions and into the transformational, it would begin to make sense. Love is about being, it is not about doing. Doing is a result of being.
Chris says the action is not love. Actions change, and we all have different interpretations of which actions are more or less valid. Actions are too subjective to be considered in themselves love. Because someone else, the same like you say with love language.
This Chris man?
I know.
Preach it.
He's one of my stepbrothers. We dance. He's a stepper.
Come on, Chris.
I'm sure you do other things, I think, as well, but I know him as we step together. Just as love languages can't stand alone, actions can't stand alone. And I think that
they can. And they often do. It is hard. So listen, men do actions all the time that have nothing behind them.
And it could be, and it looks like they like you. I think sometimes you can have a guy that is buying you things, or that he doesn't want a relationship with you. I think
it ain't tricking if you got it.
That goes back to the initial thing of men love romance, people looking at romance as being love. And when men are not seeing that as love, they could be doing all the romance and the buying, all their actions appear as love.
They could be doing it for companionship.
They could be doing it just to get some.
Or they could be doing it because this is normal to them. This is what I do.
This is what I do.
Love is that you cannot, and you must see. Here's the problem. I want people to get off of actions and get into knowing who the person is.
Who is love?
Who is the being behind the doing?
Because then you don't get with the wrong person. It's harder to be with someone who doesn't mean good for you if you've chosen the person who is love, who operates out of love, when you're not looking for these actions.
Bingo.
Because these actions give you the falsehood of sometimes, and I'm not saying all the time, but they can give you these false, because somebody operating from love is giving the actions as well. But that person who is calculated, transactioning, keeping the scoreboard.
Watch this. What you get from a person's actions is based upon what you need for who you are. I will give you I don't want to get too personal, but so let me talk about somebody else's situation.
Okay.
You know what? When I first got married in my early 20s, I was a homebody. Didn't go out very much, right? But I wanted to prove. I always wanted my wife at the time, my ex-wife, to know I loved her. And so she would say, "You're not taking me out." And so I would then say, okay, you know what? Let me plan something. Let's go out here. But I did it with the money that I had. So I was literally giving all I had. But what she received from what I was doing wasn't love. In my mind, I was giving from my rarest form of genuine love. But what she got from it wasn't love. Now, if I had done the same actions to someone else, they may have received it as love. So what you get action is based upon who you are and what you need.
But see, to me, love languages, and this is where I get confused. Love languages explains that to me in some way.
Change that to romance language.
Okay, romance language explains that to me. But romance, if we look at it that way, then romance isn't necessarily love. It's the okay.
It's not. Romance isn't love. But we often take it to be love because that's what we need it to be.
So I'll go back to that, and okay, I get it now. So how I would normally see it, and I think how it's being received here, based on the comments, is that if you did the same thing, and let's say back to the love languages, your love language is I'm going to just choose anything, physical touch, and hers are words of affirmation. And that's why if you did physical touch to someone whose love language is physical touch, they receive it differently because that's what they, to me, that part is the confusing.
I'm so glad. Come on, Wanda, you lobbing me nice soft ones. So if your love language is words of affirmation, and I hate these words now. If your romance language is words of affirmation, and the reason we got to look at it like that is I'm going to explain in a second. If your romance language is words of affirmation, and my romance language is physical touch, and I gave you physical touch when you needed words of affirmation, neither one of those things is the spirit of love. And here's what, neither one of those things is the spirit of love. But if we call it love language, right? And I give you I give you physical touch when you need or want words of affirmation, and you're looking to receive it in your romance language. What ends up happening is you exit the spirit of love. I exit the spirit of love, and we begin to start keeping score.
And then now I'm really kind of getting what you're saying and why Valencia said boo romance language.
Yeah.
But I think
because it's not love. None of that is love.
I see where that is because people buying you gifts is in love, and they can still start doing exactly what you want them to do and you still not feel loved.
Right.
And I think that's where the some people, now other people will, but I think if I did everything what is considered to be your love language, you could maybe walk away still not feeling loved. I'm buying you gifts and buying you gifts and buying you gifts.
Very true. That is what happens in a lot of relationships. They walk away not feeling love because they no longer are loved. You cannot feel that which you are not.
Valencia says it's also used to understand that your mate is giving love.
No, your mate is giving romance. Your mate is not giving love.
She said boo to romance.
I know.
Boo romance.
Your mate is not giving. Words of affirmation is not love.
Yeah, because honestly, is it really? If you really tell me you're beautiful and I love it, am I really? That's feeding this thing I think is need.
Right.
It's feeling. I feel I need that, but honestly, what I really need is deeper than that.
Can you walk past the construction workers and they give you the same thing?
No, you want it from the person you love.
Oh, so them giving you the same thing as the construction worker isn't love.
No, because I don't love the construction worker. I love him. I want it from the person I love, not the.
So the action,
that words of affirmation, which you say is your love language, is not really your love language.
It's not a love language. It's a romance language. You want to receive.
Valencia disagrees.
I know she does. You want to receive words of affirmation, but words of affirmation in and of itself does not indicate love. Neither does giving gifts. Now that you think about it.
No, he just bought me a gift. But I always equate that to that's not my love language though. So if that was my love language, I wonder would I feel love? I don't know. We're gonna have a debate. We're gonna have a love language.
Hold on. John said there is no way of expressing or being love minus action. I agree with 50% of your statement. There is no way of expressing love without action. However, there is a way of being love without action.
That's true. You can be love without, and I don't have to prove it to you to be love.
Let me say this. If you took seeds out of an apple, planted them in the ground, watered them, and the seeds began to grow, is that an apple tree growing?
What kind of seeds did I plant?
You planted apple seeds. Is that an apple tree growing?
Yes.
You don't have apples yet.
Yes.
But does that make it not an apple tree?
It's still an apple tree.
It's going to be an apple tree. So love is going to be love whether you give it away or not.
So all actions based on love will be love.
Bingo.
If you are love, every action you do will be love.
So Valencia, I agree with your statement that actions don't stand alone. No, they do not.
No, they don't. We totally agree. We know tons of people
that actions don't stand alone.
Things as if it's love and it's not.
Right.
It's totally evident that actions cannot stand alone. Absolutely cannot.
Okay, I'll give you an example. Valencia, if the man you're with tells you, you know what, I don't think that you seeing or something like the dude at work seems to have an ulterior motive for you, I just want you to be careful. And the husband you have right now, because you know his energy, you know his spirit, that would be the spirit of love. But if you're dating a narcissist who says, look, I don't feel comfortable with you with the dude at work, same scenario, same statement. Is one of them operating in love and the other operating in narcissism? Or are they both operating in the spirit of love? They've given you the exact same thing. Please answer.
So I think what intention is important. Action can't stand alone because you need to know intention.
Now we're talking. You must know intent. And in order to know intent, you must know the being.
And to know the being, if the being is love, and you know that everything about him is love, you don't question then whether he's at your phone or what, because he just loves. You know I love him. So now I'm not questioning what you're doing in your phone and who you're doing it with, because I know you operate out of love all the time. So there's no question of who you are or what you do. So
here's why this is important. Most of us misinterpret actions because you interpret actions based on you, not me. So unless you have taken the time to get to know the being, you are not qualified to interpret their actions. So you cannot determine whether the action is love or the action is narcissism or the action is greed. It is difficult to interpret. So the reason that I'm sticking to this and I'm harping on this is because most of us enter relationships and we make the other person who we design them to be in our heads, not who they actually are. And that is a disservice to you and to the person you're in a relationship with.
That's interesting. But I've run out of time, and I totally get you all's questions. Something I'll be thinking about, and I love shows that keep me thinking. You've been tuned into He Said, She Said on IntellectualRadio.com. And James, real quick, how can they reach out to you if they want more help and more of this, what you're talking about?
You can visit me on my website, jamesborche.com. You can visit me at circleurban.org. You can visit me at 708-462. Call me there. You can call me. You can give me email info@jamesborche.com. Borche is spelled BORI, and then shade like a lampshade.
And you can find me on Facebook. I'm Wanda B like a bumblebee. You can also find me here next week, same time, same place, 2 p.m. on IntellectualRadio.com.
Oh,